जय हिंद। तो कैसे हैं आप लोग? तो आज है अगस्त ऑफ 22 और आज हम कवर करेंगे हमारे पेज नंबर 3, 10, 13 एंड 17, दो टॉपिक सारे पेज से। ये वीडियो स्पेशली है सीरियस यूपीएससी सिविल सर्विसेज एस्पायरेंट्स के लिए। तो हमारे साथ हमारे लाइव एक्सप्रेस से जुड़ें और टकटकी लगाकर देखते जाएं। लेट्स स्टार्ट आवर जर्नी। So the very first topic from page number 3 of the Indian Express August 22 and 2023 is Chandrayaan 2 orbiter contacts moon lander. Welcome buddy. Ahead of its scheduled moon landing on Wednesday, Chandrayaan 3's lander module established contact with Chandrayaan 2 lunar orbit, opening up another line of communication with Earth. The Indian Space Research Organization said the orbiter greeted the lander with message, "Welcome buddy." ISRO also posted images of the fair side of the moon captured by the lander on X, formerly Twitter. Here are the images of lunar far side area captured by the lander hazard detection and avoidance camera. Lander hazard detection and avoidance camera LHDAC. This camera that assists in locating a safe landing area without boulders or deep trenches during the descent is developed by ISRO at SAC Space Application Center. I think you already know the Luna 25 has crashed. That's a very sad news for us, for the science, for space development. Let's see, we hope for the good soft landing of Chandrayaan 2. The photos were released a day after Russia's Luna 25 crashed into the moon. A success for Chandrayaan 3 would make India the first country to land on the unexplored lunar south pole. Welcome, buddy. Chandrayaan 2 or orbiter formally welcomed Chandrayaan 3 lander module. Two-way communication between the two is established. MOX Mission Operation Complex has now more routes to reach the LM, the lander module, the Indian Space Agency said in another post. Though Chandrayaan 2 failed to land on the moon's surface, its orbiter functioned normally and carried out experiments as designed. It has been in lunar orbit for the last 4 years. ISRO had said the Chandrayaan 2 orbiter would help the Chandrayaan 3 mission in different ways. The orbiter had played a role in identifying a safe landing spot for Chandrayaan 3 and is now ready to facilitate communications between the Chandrayaan 3 lander and the ground stations. Chandrayaan 3 mission's communication network with Earth stations has been configured in a manner that the lander will send data to the Chandrayaan 2 orbiter, which will in turn relay it to the ISRO's ground stations. The Chandrayaan 3 lander can directly communicate with the Earth. Suppose the Chandrayaan 2 orbiter is not working properly, then the Chandrayaan 3 lander will communicate directly with the Earth, ISRO chairman S. Somnath had said earlier. Our next topic is open mind on BRICS expansion. India-China ties in focus as PM leaves for BRICS summit today. No word yet on Modi's Sai meeting. Officials say schedule still evolving. As Prime Minister Narendra Modi leaves for the BRICS, a grouping of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, summit in Johannesburg on Tuesday, all eyes are on a possible meeting between him and Chinese President Xi Jinping. It would be the first scheduled bilateral meeting since the border standoff began in May 2020. Saying that the schedule is still evolving, officials did not rule out a meeting between the two leaders. The BRICS summit is being held in person this time. After 3 years of virtual meetings, expansion of BRICS is a major item on the agenda. Around 23 countries are learned to have submitted their applications for membership of the grouping. Briefing reporters ahead of the visit, Foreign Secretary Vinay Mohan Quatra said, "We have a positive intent and an open mind when it comes to BRICS expansion." He said the modalities for inclusion of new members into the BRICS are being discussed among the Sherpas of the grouping I would not want to prejudge the outcome of the discussions, he said. While Russian President Vladimir Putin will not attend the summit, his foreign minister Sergei Lavrov will be present. Modi will attend the summit from August 22 to 24. On August 22, after reaching in afternoon, he will attend the BRICS Business Forum Leaders Dialogue, followed by a BRICS Leaders Retreat in the evening, a discussion on global developments and concerns arising out of those developments in expected is expected during the leaders' retreat. On August 23, Modi will participate in the plenary sessions. There will be a closed plenary session which will focus on intra-BRICS issue, reform of the multilateral system and counter-terrorism. On August 24, he will participate in a special event, BRICS Africa Outreach and BRICS Plus Dialogue, being organized after the summit, which will include other countries invited by South Africa. During these sessions, the concerns and priorities of the Global South will be discussed, where the focus will be on partnership with Africa. Modi last visited South Africa in July 2018 for the 10th BRICS Summit. He also went for a bilateral visit in July 2016. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has visited India in January 2019 when he was the chief guest at the Republic Day celebrations. After his visit to the South Africa, Modi will pay an official visit to Greece on August 25 at the invitation of its Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis. This will be the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Greece in 40 years, the Foreign Secretary said. Prime Minister will hold talks with the Prime Minister Mitsotakis to discuss ways to further deepen the relationship. He will also interact with business leaders from both countries as well as with the Indian community in Greece, Quattras said. The Ministry of External Affairs MEA said that the India and Greece enjoy civilizational ties which have strengthened in recent years through cooperation in areas like maritime, transport, defense, trade and investments and people-to-people ties. Then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was the last Indian PM to visit Greece in September 1983. The then Greece Prime Minister Andreas Papandreou has visited India thrice in November 1984 for Indira Gandhi's funeral, in January 1985 to attend a summit on nuclear disarmament, and in January 1986 as a chief guest for the Republic Day function. Ministry of External Affairs Secretary West Sanjay Verma said Greece is a significant maritime power. He said the two sides would discuss security and defense cooperation because of Greece's naval capacity, and that will include training of personnel, joint development, and co production. Defense and security will be at the heart of the ties, and the conversation will be substantial and future oriented. Now, our next topic is on page number 10. Right? How to govern data, page number 9, 10. It's 8. The editorial page, how to govern data. Digital Personal Data Protection Bill is beginning. Government must delegate data management. On August 9, 2023, the Rajya Sabha unanimously passed the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill DPDP 2023 and drew the curtains on a journey that began roughly a decade ago. In the process, it has predictably provoked mixed reactions. One of the overchanging goals of the legislation, by the government's own admission, is to strike a balance between protecting personal data and enabling the processing of such data for lawful purposes so as to enable innovation and promote economic growth. In doing so, the government has largely exempted itself from the purview of the law in letter and spirit. The Act declares that for the security of the state, maintenance of public order, or preventing incitement to any cognizable offense relating to any of these, and the processing by the central government of any personal data that such instrumentality may furnish to it. The state falls outside its scope. In other words, the state could, in theory, invoke national security to justify any action. Recall how President Donald Trump had controversially invoked national security to defend an increase in steel of tariffs in the United States in complete violation of all obligations made in the World Trade Organization. The Act also provides that the central government notify a significant data fiduciary SDF and impose obligations on it, including periodic audits and data protection impact assessments, among others. While notifying such SDFs, the government will consider the volume and sensitivity of personal data process risks to the rights of the data principal, the individual who owns the data, the potential impact on the sovereignty and integrity of India, risks to electoral democracy, security of the state, and public order. Finally, the Act mandates the establishment of an adjudicatory body, Data Protection Board (DPB), that will enjoy quasi judicial powers and will be wholly appointed by the central government. The letters in the law are unambiguous. The spirit of the Act reinforces the letters. Here is how. Prima facie, STFs are most likely to be entities that enjoy significant market power SMP and as such possesses the means to abuse their dominance. If one draws a parallel with competition policy that relies heavily on SMP analysis, notification of the SMP is the privilege of the regulator because it has the necessary expertise to do so. Moreover, competition policy is no longer concerned with the size and structure but with conduct. As a result, competition law in India continues to be largely ex post, implying that the market regulator, the Competition Commission of India (CCI), intervenes once market distortion has occurred. Through this legislation, the government has signaled an intent to lay down ex ante rules to keep a check on the powers enjoyed by certain platforms that exercise immense influence. There is nothing wrong with that except the task out to be delegated to the DPB. And in practice, it still might. But why should governments get involved in notifying SDFs in the first place? If designed well, ex ante regulation could help in acknowledging and possibly limiting the harms that digital behemoths have the potential to unleash and ensuring that the burden of onerous obligations does not create high entry barriers for startups seeking to disrupt the behemoths. Schumpeterian style. Many other jurisdictions have incorporated or are in the process of incorporating ex ante obligations on identified entities. For instance, the proposed American Data Privacy and Protection Act ADPA imposes additional obligations on entities identified as large data holders, categorized by revenue and volume of data collected, while the European Union's GDPR did not have such thresholds. The recently passed Digital Services Act DSA classifies platforms or search engines that have more than 45 million active users per month as very large online platforms VLOPs or very large online search engines VLOSEs and imposes additional obligations such as independent audits and established point of contact and sharing data with the commission to assess compliance, to name a few. Though well intentioned, the Indian approach is likely to encounter a few speed bumps. For starters, inclusion of vague quality inclusion of vague qualitative parameters such as a risk to electoral democracy and public order are likely to make the process imprecise due to the lack of an objective criteria or any tangible metrics for such designation. What's more, any such determination must rely on market analysis requiring specialized skills and subject matter expertise, which may be beyond the know how of the government. And by limiting the term of the DPB to 2 years, with possible extension in spirit. The members will serve at the privilege of the government, creating perverse incentives. The Act also empowers the government to exempt any private entity from additional obligations imposed on SDFs. This leaves room open for arbitrariness and regulatory asymmetry. Another aspect of the law that seems odd is designating the Telecom Dispute Settlement and Appellate Tribunal (TDSAT) as the Appellate Tribunal of DPB. TDSAT was established with a view to hear appeals against orders of the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India (TRAI). Data is vastly more than just telecom and arguably more complex. Telecom disputes have over time themselves become more intricate and time consuming to resolve. It took a decade, if not more, to establish the jurisdictional boundaries between the TRI and TDSAT because, in part, the system was gamed by vested interest for narrow gains that hurt the sector. It could be well be argued that TDSAT was unable to function along the Benthamite lines for the welfare of the majority, and it is unlikely to do so under the current structure to enable protection of personal data. Repurposing an existing institution to deal with ever more complex questions posed by new and emerging technology is a brave experiment. Data governance is serious business, and if the government is serious about it, then it needs to delegate in letter and spirit. Now, our next topic would be on page number 10, connect Jammu and Kashmir dots. Connect J&K dots. Addressing its drug crisis requires concerted attempts at multiple levels relating to public health, economy, politics. An investigation by this newspaper has revealed that a devastating epidemic of drug addiction, mostly affecting young men, is sweeping across Kashmir, wreaking havoc on individuals and families, stretching the state's public health system and posing a new challenge to the security forces. The figures are telling. Last year, one patient walked into the valley's largest de-addiction center at SMHS Hospital, Srinagar, every 12 minutes. Police records show that the seizure of heroin, the most consumed drug in Kashmir, has more than doubled in 2022 compared to 2019. 60% more people were arrested for drug related crimes last year compared to 2019. Breaking networks of drug cartels is imperative. However, punitive measures alone cannot uproot this problem. Substance abuse universally has been recognized as a manifestation of distortions in socio-cultural, economic, and political systems. The Jammu and Kashmir administration would do well to take cues offered by its own study in collaboration with the Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Kashmir. 25% of the drugs users are unemployed, 15% are graduate, 14% have studied up to the intermediate level, and 33% have metric level education. A growing corpus of work also shows that the myriad disruption and the absence of recreational avenues in conflict zones leave psychological scars on people, especially the youth. In other words, a key part of the preventive measures should involve joining the dots between unemployment, financial difficulties, and an ecosystem rife with political uncertainty on one hand and the addictive behavior of young people on the other. Narcotic smugglers often find their way into Kashmir via Punjab, a state where the scourge of drugs has been extracting a high school cost for many years. With farming becoming less profitable in Punjab, the absence of initiatives and support structures to help the youth equip themselves with skills and opportunities has worsened the situation. Last year, a study by the Chandigarh-based Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research (PGIMER) revealed that 1 in 7 persons in Punjab is dependent on addictive substances. The Jammu and Kashmir administration must heed the lessons from the crisis in the once prosperous state. It must invest in enhancing the economic and recreational opportunities for youngsters. It would also do well to encourage civil societies prayers in its endeavors. Jammu and Kashmir could take a leaf out of the PGI-MER studies recommendations for Punjab, build the capacity of teachers, health inspectors, and block level officials for prevention activities and rope in religious leaders to advocate a Tandrust Ate Nasha Mukt अच्छा Tandrust Ate Nasha Mukt Punjab healthy and drug free state. Investigations have revealed that the drug cartels are part of a narco terror network with links to Pakistan and West Asia. This adds a new dimension to Kashmir's security challenge. The crisis is also a governance test for Jammu and Kashmir, especially at a time when it has no elected assembly. If the people and civil society have to play a significant role in thwarting the designs of the drug cartels, this should be empowered through vibrant political processes. The reason needs a healing touch. This should be undertaken at multi-level and multiple levels: public health, economy, and politics. Now our next topic will be on page number 13. 10, 11, 12, 13. The topic is the case of Park bills, how presidential assent works. Pakistan President Arif Alvi denied signing two contentious bills that were, however, deemed to have received presidential assent. As God is my witness, I did not sign Official Secrets Amendment Bill 2023 and Pakistan Army Amendment Bill 2023 as I disagreed with these laws. President Alvi posted on X, formerly Twitter, on Sunday. The two bills, which give authorities more power to prosecute people for acts against the state and military, were cleared by Pakistan's National Assembly and the Senate a few weeks ago, undermined by own staff. I asked my staff to return the unsigned bills within the stipulated time. However, I found out today that my staff undermined my will and command. Always posted on X read. In response, Pakistan's interim law ministry accused Alvi of not taking responsibility for his own actions. As the president didn't sign and return the bill within 10 days, it became law. Caretaker Law Minister Ahmad Iran said, deemed assent. Under Article 75, Subclause 1 of the Pakistani Constitution, a bill is sent to the President after being approved by both houses of Parliament. The President at this juncture has two options: either to give assent within 10 days or to return the bill, along with his objections to the Parliament. If the legislature passes the bill again, the President shall give his assent within 10 days, failing which such assent shall be deemed to have been given. Notably, the concept of deemed assent only kicks in with bills that have already been sent back to Parliament once. It is not applicable in this case. What happens after 10 days? So, what happens if the president does not do anything within the stipulated time of 10 days? According to the Article 254 of the Pakistani Constitution, when any act required by the Constitution to be done within a particular period is not done within that period, the doing of the act shall not be invalid by reasons only that it was not done within that period. This means that even though the stipulated time might have lapsed, the president is still within his rights to send the bill back to the legislature. The president's power. Normally, if sent back to the parliament, the bill would be up for discussion in a joint sitting of both houses. However, the National Assembly of Pakistan has been dissolved ahead of its upcoming elections later this year. If he returned the bills, he would essentially have killed them because there was no National Assembly to pass the bills. Lawyer Usama Khawar told Pakistani Daily. Politics behind the issue. At the heart of the controversy lies Pakistan's ongoing political crisis. The animosity between the ruling coalition of PMLN and PPP and Imran Khan's PTI is reflected in the wildly divergent reactions to Alvi's claim. While PMLN and PPP have bashed Alvi for his unconstitutional actions, even calling for his resignation, PTI has commended him for taking a stand for the Constitution. It has also said that it will approach the Supreme Court with the matter. Arif Alvi contested elections on a PTI ticket in 2018 before being appointed president by Imran Khan and is still seen as an Imran loyalist. Last week, he killed over a dozen bills by sending them back. Now, on page number 13, our next topic is why global clothing retailers are exiting Myanmar. Right? So, let's discuss. The world's second largest clothing retailer H&M recently announced it would gradually phase out sourcing from Myanmar days after an advocacy group revealed the increasing number of labor abuse cases in the country's garment industry. After careful consideration, we have now taken the decision to gradually phase out our operations in Myanmar, H&M told Reuters. We have been monitoring the latest developments in Myanmar and we see increased challenges to conduct our operations according to our standards and requirements. Myanmar's garment industry has been in crisis since the military coup in February 2021, while numerous factories have permanently shut down. The working conditions have drastically deteriorated. Wages have plummeted, working hours have spiked, laborers have been fired randomly. Clothing retailers cut ties. Before H&M, Inditex, owner of the world's biggest clothing retailer Zara, said it was in the process of stopping all purchases from Myanmar. The announcement came after a vociferous campaign by the global workers' union industry all to convince companies to divest from Myanmar. Inditex is in the process of a phased and responsible exit from Myanmar, following IndustriAll's call. A company spokesperson said, "We continue to reduce the number of active manufacturers in the country." Earlier, Spanish fast fashion retailer Mango announced it was stopping sourcing from Myanmar. In September last year, Irish retailer Primark said it would begin working towards a responsible exit. The next month, Marks and Spencer's laid out its exit plans in a statement. Garment industry in crisis. Before the government Before the COVID-19 pandemic, the clothing industry accounted for 28% of Myanmar's exports. It employed 7 lakh people and was the country's fastest growing sector. The pandemic, followed by the coup, severely impacted the industry. According to the International Labour Organization ILO, 220,000 garment workers, primarily women, were laid off in 2021. More than 50 factories temporarily shut down and around 13 permanently closed the same year. The Myanmar Garment Manufacturers Association MGMA said several Chinese owned factories were targeted by anti coup protesters. Trade union leaders were arrested, and many trade unions which opposed the coup were disbanded by the military. Business and Human Rights Resources Center, a British human rights advocacy, in a recent report said there has been a significant increase in labor and human rights abuse of garment workers across the country since the military takeover. The report documented 156 cases of alleged workers' abuses in Myanmar garment factories from February 2022 to February 23, up from 56 in the previous year. It noted wage reduction and wage theft remain the most reported allegations, linked to over half of cases, 55%, followed by unfair dismissal, 42% of cases, and inhumane work rates and forced and often unpaid overtime, 42% cases, gender-based violence and harassment, including verbal, psychological, and physical abuse, and pregnancy discrimination has also been prevalent. Now, our Next topic will be on page number 17. This was 13. Yeah. On page number 17, we have sharp rise in remittances for equity purchases gifts under LRS in June. Remittances shot up to $3.89 billion in June, shows RBI data. Outward remittances under the liberalized remittance scheme LRS. This is a liberalized remittance scheme for resident individuals. Outward remittances under the LRS. June outward remittances were deposit, purchase of immovable property, investment in equity or debt, gift, donations, travel, maintenance of close relatives, medical treatment, studies abroad, others. Which in June. Now, ahead of the deadline for the TCS tax collected at source, which was supposed to come into effect from July this year, remittances by resident Indians to other countries jumped 35% on a month basis in June 23 and 96% when compared to June 22. According to Reserve Bank of India RBI data, fund outflow under the RBI's liberalized remittances scheme LRS shot up to $3.89 billion, that is rupees 32,000 crore in June as against $2.88 billion, rupees 23,900 crore in May this year. LRS outflows in June 2022 were just $1.98 billion, that is rupees 16,430 crore. There was a significant rise in LRS outflows under the categories of equity or debt investment, purchase of immovable property, overseas deposits, and maintenance of relatives abroad. The government had since then postponed the implementation of TCS on remittances to October 1, 2023. Under LRS, all residents, individuals including minors, can remit up to US dollar 2,50,000, approximately rupees 2.07 lakh crore, abroad per year without prior approval from the RBI. While the total remittances under the LRS in the last 5 years were $91.98 billion, rupees 7,63,400 crores, the average outflow under the LRS in fiscal year 22-23 was $2.261 billion every month, aggregating $27.14 billion, that is rupees 2,25,200 crore for the full year. Cumulatively, for the April-June quarter this year, outward remittances rose to $9.1 billion, which is one third of the total remittances in fiscal year 23. The reason for the rise in the outflows was because people seem to have remitted money abroad to avoid TCS payment from July 1, according to bankers. Remittances to purchase immovable property abroad rose by 116% to $45.85 million in June this year as against $21.22 million in the previous month, according to RBI data. LRS outflow for purchase of equity and debt abroad shot up by 194.66% to $314.73 million in June from $106.81 million in May. Equity investment spurted by 384% from just $65 million in June 2022. According to RBI data, remittances for maintenance of relatives rose by 81.54% to $890.89 million in June 23 from $490.73 million in the previous month and $304.85 million in the June 2022. Remittances as gift also jumped by 64.81% to $890.89 million June from $390.72 million in the previous month. However, travel remittances were marginally lower at $1.482 billion in June from $1.495 billion in the previous month. The budget 2023-24 had proposed hiking the TCS rate to 20% from 5% above the rupees 7 lakh threshold for all purposes. other than education and medical treatment. Also, also for overseas tour packages, the government had proposed hiking the TCS rate to 20% from 5% without any threshold with effect from July 1. On May 16, the Center amended rules under the Foreign Exchange Management Act FEMA, bringing international credit cards spent under the LRS. As a consequence, spending on international credit cards would have then attracted a higher rate of TCS at 20% from July 1. However, on May 19, the government clarified that any payments by an individual using their international debit or credit cards up to Rs 7 lakh per financial year will be excluded from the LRS limits and hence will not attract any TCS. The government then postponed the implementation to the October 1, 2023. Days before the new tax was to come into effect, in a reversal of its earlier decision, the government decided to defer the decision to include international credit card spends outside India under the LRS. This in effect means there will be no levy of TCS on international credit card spends outside the India as of now. The government also extended the timeline to levy the higher proposed TCS rates with effect from October 1 instead of July 1 this year. This postponement came amid banks raising concerns about the unpreparedness of their reporting system to roll out the differential TCS levy for various categories such as medical, education, overseas tour package, among others. Now, after this, our last topic on page number 17 is India ASEAN to conclude. India ASEAN to conclude FTA review in 2025. What is this about? India and the 10 nation bloc ASEAN have agreed to fast track negotiations for the review of the existing free trade agreement in goods between the two regions and conclude the talks in 2025, an official statement said on Monday. The issue was discussed during the 20th AEM ASEAN Economic Ministers India consultation meeting held at Semarang, Indonesia. The Commerce Ministry said that the main agenda of this year's meeting was a timely review of ASEAN India Trade in Goods Agreement AITIGA. The Economic Ministers meeting was preceded by AITIGA Joint Committee meeting which deliberated the roadmap for the review and finalized the term of reference and the work plan of the review negotiations. The review of the AITIGA was a long-standing demand of Indian businesses and the early commencement would help in making the FTA trade facilitative and mutually beneficial, it said. So that's all for today. Keep learning, keep working hard. Thank you so much guys for your patience. And do check the description where I will upload only the relevant pages of this newspaper.